The red dust of seven swirled around Commander Sung's boots as he stepped off the transport ship. The mining colony stretched before him, a collection of buildings against an orange sky. His team of 40 soldiers followed behind, their weapons ready but lowered. They were here to secure mining rights, nothing more. "Sir, readings show two different alien forces fighting 3 kilometers east," said Sergeant, checking his scanner. The device beeped steadily in his gloved hands. Sung nodded. The reports had mentioned conflict on this world. 2 alien races were at war here, fighting over the same minerals Earth needed. There were large reptilian warriors, fierce and proud. There were insect-like creatures that moved in swarms. Both groups had ignored Earth's requests for peaceful negotiation. "We stay out of it," Sung ordered. "Set up base camp near the southern mines. We're not here to fight their war." The human soldiers moved quickly, establishing a perimeter with defensive walls and sensor equipment. Dr. I set up a medical tent while Corporal Jinho worked on the power generators. Lieutenant Nu performed maintenance checks on their 2 small combat shuttles. Everything seemed routine. 3 days passed quietly. The humans mined valuable ore and stayed away from the fighting. At night, they could see explosions lighting up the eastern hills. The ground sometimes shook from distant artillery, but they kept to themselves. On the 4th morning, burst into the command tent. "Sir, we have a situation. The forces are surrounded. There's a whole army closing in on them." Sung studied the tactical display. A group of about 60 warriors were trapped in a narrow canyon. Thousands of soldiers were moving to encircle them. It would be a massacre. "Not our problem," Sung said, but his jaw was tight. He watched the display, seeing the positions shrinking. "Sir, they'll be wiped out in an hour," said quietly. Sung closed his eyes for a moment. His orders were clear: don't get involved. Secure the mines. Go home. But he had been a soldier for 20 years. He knew what honor meant. He knew what it meant to leave warriors to die when you could help. "Get everyone ready," he finally said. "Full combat load. We move in 10 minutes." Grinned, "Yes, sir." The human force moved fast across the rocky terrain. They were fewer in number, but they knew how to fight smart. Jinho had quickly assembled explosive charges. Nu brought 1 shuttle loaded with supplies and weapons. They were going to even the odds. They didn't notice the humans approaching. They were too busy fighting for their lives. There were massive beings, each standing over 7 feet tall with thick-scaled skin and powerful claws. They fought with honor, standing their ground even as the swarm closed in. Their leader, Warchief R, swung his plasma blade in wide arcs. His armor was scorched and dented. Around him, his warriors formed a tight circle, protecting their wounded. They knew they were about to die, but they would die fighting. Then the explosion started. Jinho's charges detonated along the canyon rim, sending rocks crashing down onto the forces. The insect warriors screeched in confusion as boulders crushed dozens of them. The coordinated attack fell into chaos. Sung's voice crackled over the radio. "All units, hit them from the sides. Don't let them regroup." The human soldiers opened fire from concealed positions. Their rifles spat bullets with deadly accuracy. Each human found cover behind rocks and fired in controlled bursts. They didn't have the raw strength of or the numbers of but they fought with precision. Let a squad down into the canyon itself. They threw smoke grenades that filled the air with thick clouds. In the confusion, they reached the defensive position. R roared in surprise when he saw the humans. These small, soft-skinned creatures were fighting for him. "Why?" "We're here to help," shouted over the sound of gunfire. "Can your people move?" R's red eyes narrowed. He didn't understand, but he wasn't foolish. "We can fight." "Then let's fight together," said. The combined force pushed back hard. They provided raw power, smashing through lines with their blade weapons and enhanced strength. The humans provided tactical support, picking off enemies from range and using explosives to create paths of escape. Na brought the shuttle in low, its guns blazing. She was an excellent pilot, weaving through the canyon as enemy fire streaked past her. She dropped supply containers next to the wounded, giving them medical supplies and ammunition. Dr. Ah's voice came over radio. "I'm setting up an aid station at the canyon entrance. Bring the wounded here." The battle raged for 2 more hours. It was brutal and exhausting, but slowly the tide turned. They began to retreat, their coordination broken by the unexpected human intervention. They had expected to overwhelm them through sheer numbers. They hadn't planned for human tactics. At one point, a soldier fired a plasma weapon at R from behind. The war chief didn't see it coming, but did. The sergeant threw himself forward, pushing R aside. The plasma bolt hit shoulder armor, melting through and burning his skin. He screamed but stayed on his feet, firing his rifle with one hand until the enemy fell. R caught before he collapsed. The massive stared down at the human in disbelief. This small warrior had taken a wound meant for him, had saved his life. "Why?" R rumbled, his voice like grinding stones. Managed a pained smile. "Because it was the right thing to do." When the fighting finally ended, they had retreated completely. The canyon floor was littered with the dead from all 3 species. Sung's force had lost 3 soldiers with 12 wounded. They had lost 20 warriors, but they had survived. Together, they had survived. Dr. Ah worked tirelessly on the wounded, treating both humans and. The warriors watched in fascination as she sealed plasma burn with medical foam. She then turned to a wounded warrior and began treating his injuries with the same care. R approached Sung as the sun set over the battlefield. The war chief's armor was covered in blue blood and scorch marks. He looked exhausted but alive. "You are Commander Sung," R said. It wasn't a question. "I am," Sung replied, meeting the alien's fierce gaze. "You had no reason to help us. We are not allies. We have no agreement with your kind." Sung shrugged. "You were warriors in trouble. We could help. That was reason enough." R was silent for a long moment. In his long life, he had fought beside many races. He had seen cowardice and courage, betrayal and loyalty. But he had never seen warriors fight for strangers with no hope of reward. "They have a word," R finally said. "Hal, it means blood debt. When one warrior saves another, a bond is formed, a debt of honor." He placed his clawed hand over his chest in salute. "I owe you, Hal, Commander Sung. I owe your warriors, Hal." Sung didn't fully understand the significance, but he nodded respectfully. "We were glad to help." "The do not forget honor," R said. "We do not forget those who fight beside us. You have earned something precious today, humans. You have earned respect." As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, human and soldiers sat together around fires, sharing food and tending wounds. They couldn't speak each other's languages well, but they didn't need to. They had spoken the universal language of warriors. They had fought together, they had bled together, and that changed everything. The warship hung in orbit above Seven like a massive blade of dark metal. Its name was Crimson Talon, and it was now home to Commander Sung and 30 of his soldiers. War Chief R had insisted the humans stay aboard as honored guests while their wounded healed. Sat in the medical bay, his shoulder wrapped in both human and bandages. Dr. Ah had done excellent work, but the plasma burn would leave a scar. He didn't mind. It was a mark of honor. "You are healing well," rumbled a deep voice. R entered the medical bay, ducking through the doorway meant for his kind. He carried something in his clawed hands. "Thanks to Dr. Ah said, "She's a miracle worker." R held out a metal band, carved with intricate patterns. "This is for you. It marks you as Hal bound, as one who holds my life debt." Took the band carefully. It was warm to the touch and surprisingly light. "I don't need payment, we just did what was right." "That is why you earned this," R said. "They have fought many races. Most fight for territory, for resources, for power, but you fought for honor, for what is right." He placed his massive hand on Good's shoulder. "That makes you dangerous and worthy of respect." In another part of the ship, Dr. Ah was learning biology. Their medical officer, a veteran named, showed her their equipment with obvious pride. She was amazed by how different their bodies were, yet how similar the basic principles of medicine remained. "Your people heal fast," noted, watching her work. "We thought humans were fragile." "We are fragile compared to," Ah said with a smile. "But we're stubborn. We don't give up easily." "We are learning this," replied, his voice holding what might have been amusement. Meanwhile, Corporal Jinho was in the engineering section of the Crimson Talon. The engineers watched in fascination as he jury-rigged a human portable shield generator to work with their power systems. The two technologies shouldn't be compatible, but Jinho had a gift for making things work. "This is not possible," one engineer insisted, even as the shield flickered to life. Jinho grinned. "Tell that to the shield." The peaceful days ended when the alarms blared through both the ship and the human base on the surface. Sung rushed to the command center where R stood over a holographic display. The war chief's face was grim. "They are coming," R said. "A massive fleet. They seek revenge for their defeat." Sung studied the display. Hundreds of ships were approaching the planet. On the ground, their armies were already massing. This wasn't a skirmish. This was an invasion. "Our reinforcements won't arrive for 3 days," Sung said quietly. "Ours are scattered across the sector. They cannot reach us in time." R's claws tapped against the console. "We must hold the colony. If it falls, they will control this entire region." "Then we hold," Sung said simply. The combined force prepared for the coming storm. Human and soldiers worked side by side, building defenses around the mining colony. Jinho showed the engineers how to set up human shield generators to protect their artillery positions. They shared their heavy plasma cannons with the human defenders. Lieutenant Nu performed flight checks on both human shuttles and borrowed fighters. The pilots watched her pre-flight routine with interest. She was methodical and thorough, checking every system twice. "You fly like a warrior," one pilot told her. It was clearly meant as a compliment. Nu laughed. "I fly like someone who wants to live through the battle." Sergeant Mei Young set up communications between all defensive positions. She had learned enough of the language to coordinate effectively. When technical terms failed, she used simple words and hand gestures. Understanding grew between the two forces. They attacked at dawn. Their ships darkened the sky, launching drop pods that crashed into the ground like meteors. Thousands of insect warriors poured out, their mandibles clicking as they advanced in coordinated waves. The defense line erupted with fire. Plasma cannons tore through the ranks while human rifles picked off commanders and specialists. Jinho's shield generators absorbed the first wave of enemy fire, buying precious seconds for the defenders to aim and shoot. R fought at the front line, his massive blade cutting through enemies with brutal efficiency. Beside him, Sung moved with calculated precision, his rifle never missing. They had very different fighting styles, but they worked well together. They provided raw power while the human provided tactical awareness. "Left flank weakening," Sung shouted over the noise. R roared orders in his language. A group of warriors rushed to reinforce the position. Was already there with his squad, holding the line despite being outnumbered. When they arrived, they formed a combined defense that they couldn't break. In the sky, Nu danced her shuttle through enemy fire. She had cargo containers full of ammunition and medical supplies that needed to reach forward positions. Fighters flew escort, their powerful weapons clearing a path for her. "Coming in hot on landing Zone 3, Nu announced over the radio. "Negative, Zone 3 is overrun," Mi Young replied quickly. "Redirect to Zone 5. Nu banked hard, pulling impossible maneuvers that made her escorts struggle to keep up. She dropped the supplies exactly where needed, then pulled up before enemy fire could catch her. As she climbed, She saw a fighter take a direct hit. The pilot was trying to eject, but his system was failing. Without thinking, Nutov toward the falling fighter. She matched his descent, positioning her shuttle underneath. When he finally ejected, he crashed onto her shuttle's roof. She felt the impact but held steady, flying them both to safety. On the ground, the battle grew more desperate. Wave after wave of crashed against the defenses. Dr. Ah worked frantically in the medical station, treating wounded from both species. She had no time to rest, moving from patient to patient with practiced efficiency. A wounded warrior grabbed her arm gently. "You saved my life," he said in broken human language. "Thank you, small warrior." "Just doing my job," Ah replied, already moving to the next patient. But she felt a warmth in her chest. These warriors trusted her with their lives. The battle lasted 18 hours. When they finally retreated, the defenders were exhausted but victorious. The colony still stood. The cost had been high, many wounded and some dead from both species, but they had held. Sung and Ar met in the center of the battlefield as the last fires burned out. Both were covered in dirt and blood. Both were still standing. "Your people fought with great courage," Ar said. "They expected us to fall quickly. They did not account for human tactics." "Your warrior's strength gave us time to execute those tactics," Sung replied. "We couldn't have one without you." Ar made a sound that might have been laughter. "You are learning diplomacy, Commander, but you speak truth as well." He looked around at the mixed groups of soldiers helping each other. "They have a word, Al. It means the warrior's heart. We believed only possessed it, but we were wrong." He placed both massive hands on Sung's shoulders. "You humans have Al. You fight not just with weapons, but with courage, with honor, with loyalty to those beside you. This is rare among the stars." That night there was a ceremony. They had their traditions, and they insisted on performing one for the humans. All the warriors gathered in a large clearing. Torches burned bright against the dark sky. Ar stood before Sung and his soldiers. He spoke in his language, and Mi Young translated quietly. "Today the humans prove they are not soft skins. They are not weak newcomers. They are warriors worthy of respect. They have shed blood beside us. They have earned Hal. From this day we are bound by honor." Each human soldier received a metal band like the one wore. Each band was unique, carved with patterns that told a story. As they placed them on human arms, they spoke names and remembered deeds from the battle. When it was Sung's turn, Ar presented him with a blade. Not a human weapon, but a warrior's blade, passed down through generations. "This belonged to my father," Ar said, "and his father before him. I give it to you, Sung of Earth. You are Hal bound to me. You are brother in battle." Sung accepted the blade with both hands. He understood the weight of this gift. "I am honored, Ar. I will carry it with pride." As the ceremony ended, and warriors from both species shared food and stories, something fundamental had changed. They no longer saw humans as weak or unproven, and the humans had learned that honor and courage existed beyond their own species. In the medical tent, Dr. Ah continued her work. She had written detailed notes about biology and human medical cooperation. These notes would change everything. For the first time, different species were learning to care for each other in battle. Jinho looked at his successful shield generator integration and smiled. If humans and technology could work together, what else was possible? Na checked her shuttle and found a dent on the roof where the pilot had landed. She decided not to fix it. It was a reminder that they had saved each other. That's what mattered. The war on Seven wasn't over. They would attack again. But now humans stood together, and that made all the difference. The planet Prime was nothing like Earth. 3 suns hung in the purple sky, casting strange shadows across the massive stone cities. Commander Sung stood at the window of the diplomatic shuttle, watching as they descended toward the capital. Beside him, Ar seemed pleased. "The Council of Blades has never invited outsiders before," the war chief explained. "This is a great honor for your people." Sung nodded, though he felt nervous. He had brought a small team: Dr. Ah, Private Dong, Sergeant Mi Young, and Jin Ho. They were the best representatives of humanity he could offer, but would that be enough? The council building was enormous, built from black stone that seemed to absorb light. Inside, the ceiling stretched so high it disappeared into shadow. Representatives from dozens of alien species filled the grand chamber. Sung recognized the warriors, but there were many others he had never seen. "The bird-like ones are Mi Young whispered, reading from her data pad. "They're scholars and diplomats, very influential in galactic politics." They were indeed impressive. They stood about 5 feet tall with feathers that shimmered in shades of blue and silver. Their eyes were large and intelligent. One of them watched the human delegation with obvious interest. "And those glowing figures?" asked quietly. "They're energy beings. Not much is known about them." They looked like humanoid shapes made of soft white light. They didn't speak with voices, but somehow their thoughts could be understood by those nearby. They were mysterious and ancient, older than most other races. R led the humans to their designated area. Other species watched them with various expressions: curiosity, suspicion, dismissal. Sung kept his face neutral and his shoulders straight. They were representing all of humanity here. The council session began. A massive elder named Ash presided over the assembly. His voice boomed through the chamber as he called the meeting to order. "We gather to discuss the threat," Ash announced. "They grow bolder, they attack more worlds. We must decide how to respond." Various representatives spoke, each offering their perspective. The ambassador, a distinguished individual named, suggested diplomatic solutions. They argued for military action. They remained silent, observing everything. Then Ash gestured to R. "War Chief R has brought guests, the humans who fought beside warriors on 7. He claims they have earned the right to speak here." The chamber erupted with noise. Many species had never heard of humans. Others knew of Earth but dismissed it as an insignificant world. Feathers ruffled with what might have been amusement or disdain. "With respect, War Chief, why should we listen to a species so new to space? They have no experience with galactic conflict." R's eyes glowed red with anger, but Sung placed a hand on his arm. The commander stepped forward, looking small among the giants and ancient beings around him. "Ambassador makes a fair point," Sung said clearly. "We are new to space. We don't have thousands of years of history like but we have fought we have bled beside warriors, and we have won." "One battle proves nothing," replied. His voice was musical but cold. "Luck is not the same as skill." "Then let our actions speak," Sung said. "We're here to help, not to claim glory. Use us however the council sees fit." The session continued for hours. Sung and his team listened carefully, learning about galactic politics and the many worlds threatened by the expansion. It was overwhelming, but they took detailed notes. Mi Young recorded everything, building a database of information Earth would need. During a break, Dong wandered the gardens outside the council building. He was the youngest of the team, barely 23 years old, but he had excellent instincts. Something felt wrong. He couldn't explain it, but his training as a scout told him to stay alert. He saw walking alone through the gardens, admiring the alien flowers. The ambassador seemed lost in thought, his feathers catching the light of the 3 suns. Then Dong saw movement in the shadows. 3 figures moving too quietly, too deliberately. They were heading toward with clear hostile intent. Dong recognized their forms even in the dim light. Assassins. "Ambassador," Dong shouted, sprinting forward. Turned in surprise, but they were already attacking. The first one lunged with poisoned blades extended. It would have killed instantly if Dong hadn't tackled the ambassador out of the way. They rolled across the grass as the blade whistled past. Dong came up with his sidearm drawn. He fired 3 quick shots, dropping the first assassin, but the other 2 were on him before he could adjust his aim. One blade sliced across his arm, drawing blood. The pain was intense, but he ignored it. Wasn't helpless. They drew a small energy weapon and fired, his aim surprisingly good. 1 assassin fell, but the third one was too fast, dodging and weaving. Then appeared, having heard the commotion. He didn't hesitate, throwing himself at the remaining. The 2 went down in a tangle of limbs. Combat training took over, and within seconds the threat was neutralized. Guards arrived moments later, but the danger had passed. Stood there, breathing hard, his feathers disheveled. He looked at Dong, who was bleeding but still standing. "You saved my life," said slowly. "You didn't know me. You had no reason to risk yourself." Dong shrugged, wincing at the movement. "You're an ambassador. That makes you important. Besides, couldn't just let them kill you while I watched." Stared at the young human for a long moment. Then he bowed deeply, his feathers sweeping the ground. "I was wrong about your people. Forgive my arrogance." Back in the council chamber, the news of the assassination attempt spread quickly. The fact that a human had saved an ambassador changed the mood dramatically. Species that had dismissed humanity now looked at them with new eyes. Dr. Ah treated Dong's wound while the council discussed what had happened. The attack proved they were desperate and dangerous. They were willing to strike even at the council itself. That's when Mi Young spoke up. She had been working quietly with her equipment during the break, analyzing communication patterns she had intercepted on 7. "I think I've found something," she announced, her voice uncertain but determined. The council fell silent. Mi Young projected her data onto the main display. Complex patterns of signals and codes filled the screen. "I've been studying communications for weeks," she explained. "They use a sophisticated encryption system, but it has patterns. I think I've partially broken their battle codes." Jinho stood beside her, backing up her work. "The patterns suggest they're planning something big, not just attacks on colonies, something much larger." Moved closer to study the data. His large eyes moved rapidly across the information. "This is remarkable work. You decrypted battle codes. Our best analysts have tried for years." Mi Young looked embarrassed. "I just looked at it differently, found patterns they weren't hiding as well as others." The who had been silent throughout the entire session suddenly communicated. Their thoughts touched everyone's minds like a gentle breeze. The humans see with fresh eyes. Perhaps this is what is needed. Over the next several hours, Mi Young and Jinho worked with analysts to piece together more information. The picture that emerged was disturbing. They were building a massive weapon on a hidden world, something capable of destroying entire planets. "We must strike before they complete it," R said, "but we don't know where this weapon is located." Sung studied the tactical data. "Then we find it, we organize a joint strike force. Humans, anyone willing to help, we locate this weapon and destroy it." "Such a mission would be incredibly dangerous," Ash said. "Many would not return." "But if we don't try, how many worlds will die?" Sung asked. "How many species will they destroy with this weapon?" The council chamber fell silent. Every representative understood what was being proposed. This wasn't a simple battle. This was a desperate gamble that could either save countless lives or end in complete disaster. Was the first to speak. "They will send ships and soldiers. The humans saved my life when they had no obligation to do so. We will stand beside them now." One by one, other species pledged their support, though of course were eager to fight. They agreed to provide their unique abilities. Even smaller species offered what they could: supplies, intelligence, technical support. By the end of the session, a plan was forming. A multi-species task force would locate and destroy the superweapon. It would be commanded jointly, with leaders from each major species working together. Sung was named as one of the commanders, alongside R, and it was unprecedented, a human leading a galactic military operation. but no one objected. He had proven himself not through words but through actions. That evening, the human team gathered in their quarters. They were exhausted but also energized. They had come to this council as unknowns, dismissed by many. Now they were key players in a plan to save multiple worlds. "Did you ever think we'd end up here?" Dong asked, flexing his bandaged arm. "Fighting beside aliens to save the galaxy," laughed. "No, I thought we'd just be mining on some boring colony." "Things change," Dr. Ah said quietly. "We've changed. The galaxy's perception of us has changed." Sung looked out the window at the alien sky. 3 suns were setting, painting everything in shades of purple and orange. Somewhere out there was a weapon that could destroy worlds, and they were going to stop it. "Get some rest," he told his team. "We have a lot of work ahead. Planning meetings start tomorrow. We need to be sharp." As they filed out to their sleeping quarters, Jinho paused. "Sir, do you think we can actually do this?" Sung considered the question carefully. "I think we have to try. That's what matters. Not whether we can, but that we must." The Council of Blades had given humanity something precious, a chance to prove themselves on the galactic stage. But more importantly, they had found allies. Even the mysterious were willing to fight beside humans. The mission ahead would be dangerous. Many might not return, but they would face it together, united by a common cause. And that unity, Sung believed, was more powerful than any weapon that could build. The planet designated Omega-9 hung before them like a dark jewel. Its surface was covered in hives and industrial facilities where they had built their superweapon. Commander Sung stood on the bridge of the combined fleet's flagship, studying the tactical display. Ships from 5 different species surrounded him, all waiting for the order to attack. "Final weapons check," Sung ordered. His voice was calm, but his heart raced. This was it. Everything they had planned for the past 3 weeks came down to the next few hours. Beside him, R tested his plasma blade. The war chief looked eager for battle. On Sung's other side, Ambassador reviewed troop deployments. They had proven to be excellent strategists. "They are in position," Mi Young reported from the communication station. "They'll create the distraction on the northern continent while we hit the weapon facility in the south." Sung nodded. The plan was complex, requiring precise coordination between species that had never fought together before. They had practiced the attack sequence dozens of times, but practice wasn't the same as reality. "All units, this is command," Sung spoke into the fleet-wide channel. "We know what's at stake. The weapon could destroy entire worlds. We cannot let them complete it. Today, we fight not for territory or resources. We fight for every innocent life in the galaxy. All species, all worlds. Let's bring our people home." The fleet dropped from orbit in perfect formation. Human ships flew alongside warships. Cruisers coordinated with the glowing forms of vessels. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. They were ready for them. Anti-air fire lit up the sky as the combined force entered the atmosphere. Ships exploded on both sides, but the attack continued. Na piloted her shuttle through the chaos, weaving between larger vessels with skill that made even experienced pilots envious. "Landing zone approaching," she announced. 30 seconds. The assault force hit the ground hard. Ramps dropped and soldiers poured out, humans in tactical gear, massive warriors, troops with advanced weapons, and the providing support from above. They had one objective: reach the weapon facility and destroy it. Sergeant Wu directed the heavy weapons teams. He had spent the past weeks training soldiers on human artillery tactics. Now they worked together, setting up mobile gun positions that provided covering fire for advancing troops. "Target those bunkers," Wu ordered. A warrior nodded and fired his plasma cannon. The bunker exploded in a shower of debris. Human and soldiers advanced through the gap. The defenders were fierce. They knew this was their last stand. Wave after wave of insect warriors threw themselves at the invaders. The fighting was brutal and close quarters. Led his mixed squad through the industrial complex. Half his team was human, half. They communicated with hand signals and shared combat experience, moving like they had trained together for years instead of weeks. Contact left, signaled. The squad split smoothly, humans taking cover while provided suppressing fire. Then they switched roles, with charging forward while humans picked off enemies from range. It was a deadly dance they had perfected through necessity. Dr. Ah and Corporal Sun had established a field hospital near the landing zone. Wounded from all species were brought back on stretchers. The two medics worked without pause, their training with biology now saving lives that would have been lost before. "Soldier, severe burns," Sun called out. Ah rushed over with the appropriate medical supplies. They had prepared for this, studying the biology of every species in the assault force. Now that preparation was being tested. A wounded warrior grabbed Ah's arm gently. "Doctor, am I dying?" "Not on my watch," Ah said firmly. She worked quickly, sealing the plasma wounds. "You're going to live to fight another day." The eyes closed with relief. Around them, human and alien medics worked side by side, saving each other's people. It was chaos, but it was coordinated chaos. At the front line, Sung and R pushed deeper into the facility. The weapon was somewhere in the underground levels, protected by the Queen's elite guard. These were no ordinary soldiers. They were larger, faster, and far more dangerous. Jinho's demolition charges blasted through reinforced doors. Each explosion brought them closer to their goal, but the cost was mounting. Soldiers fell on both sides. The walls were scorched with plasma fire and bullet holes. "We're getting close," Mi-young reported, checking her scanner. "I'm detecting massive energy readings below us. That has to be the weapon." They reached a massive shaft leading downward into darkness. Sung looked into the depths and saw the weapon for the first time. It was enormous, a twisted structure of metal and organic material that pulsed with sickly green light. Workers swarmed over it like ants. "We need to get down there," Sung said. "They have collapsed the main access tunnels," reported. "They're trying to buy time to complete the weapon." Jinho stepped forward, his face covered in soot and blood. "I can create a path, but it'll be rough and loud." "Do it," Sung ordered. Jinho worked with an engineer combining human explosives with alien technology. The resulting charges were powerful enough to blast through solid rock. When they detonated, the entire facility shook. Dust and debris filled the air, but when it cleared, there was a path downward. "Let's move," Ah roared. The combined force descended into the depths. The Queen's Guard met them at every level. The fighting was the most intense they had faced. In the narrow tunnels, there was no room for fancy tactics. It was brutal, desperate combat. Wu's artillery teams couldn't follow into the tunnels, so he picked up a rifle and went in with the assault force. He fought alongside a warrior who had become a friend over the past weeks. They protected each other's backs, moving as one unit. Dong scouted ahead, his small size allowing him to move through gaps the larger soldiers couldn't fit. He marked enemy positions, allowing the main force to avoid ambushes. A soldier followed him, their keen eyes spotting threats Dong might miss. They made an excellent team. The assault force was getting pinned down. They had fortified the final approach to the weapon. Sung saw his soldiers falling, saw warriors struggling against overwhelming numbers. They were so close, but they might not make it. "We need to push through," R said. "One final charge." Sung knew what that meant. A charge into that kind of defensive position would be suicide for whoever led it. Many would die. But if they didn't try, the weapon would be completed. Millions would die across multiple worlds. "I'll lead it," Sung said quietly. "No," R replied. "We lead it together, hell-bound, brothers in battle." Stepped forward. The do not charge into battle, but today we will learn for honor for the galaxy. Around them, soldiers from every species prepared for the final push. They looked at each other, human, and different faces, different forms, but united in purpose. For honor, I roared. For the galaxy, Sung shouted. They charged together. It was magnificent and terrible. The combined force hit the defensive line like a tsunami. Plasma fire and bullets filled the air. Soldiers fell, but others took their place. They fought not as separate species, but as one united force. And Nar reached the weapon controls. They worked frantically while the battle raged around them. Jinho joined them, his engineering expertise crucial for understanding the alien technology. I can overload the power core, Jinho shouted over the noise. But someone needs to hold this position while I work. We've got you, said, firing his rifle at approaching. Nuck coordinated with the orbital forces. We need an orbital strike on these coordinates, she called into her radio. After we blow the core, the whole facility will collapse. We need a way out. Working on it, Mi Young replied from above. Jinho's hands flew over the controls. Human technology and alien engineering merged in his mind as he worked. The weapon's power core was unstable by design. They had been rushing to complete it. He could use that instability against them. 30 seconds, Jinho announced. Sung fought his way to the control room. A massive elite guard blocked his path. They clashed, human rifle against alien blades. Sung was smaller and weaker, but he was faster and smarter. He dodged and weaved, landing precise shots that found weak points in the armor. R appeared beside him, his blade cutting through the elite guard. Together, they made it to the control room. It's done, Jinho said. The core is overloading. We have 5 minutes before this whole place explodes. Everyone retreat, Sung ordered over the fleet channel. Fall back to extraction points now. The combined force ran for their lives. Behind them, the weapon core began to collapse. Green energy crackled through the facility. Workers and soldiers scrambled to escape, but many were caught in the destruction. Na brought her shuttle down into the chaos, its ramp already open. Soldiers piled in, human, all mixed together. Other shuttles did the same, racing against time. Sun and Ah helped wounded soldiers onto medical transports. They weren't leaving anyone behind, no matter what species. The facility began to implode. Sung was the last one into his shuttle, pushing a wounded soldier ahead of him. As they lifted off, he saw the weapon collapse into itself, creating a crater miles wide. Back in orbit, the fleet regrouped. They had done it. The superweapon was destroyed, but the cost had been severe. 20% casualties across all species, ships destroyed, friends lost. In the medical bay, Ah worked on Sung's injuries. He had been wounded during the final charge but had ignored it until now. Around them, medical staff from multiple species cared for the wounded. We did it, Sung said quietly. Yes, Ah replied, but many didn't make it home. They held a memorial service on the flagship. Names were read from all species. Humans stood beside. They had lost people they had trained with, fought beside, saved and been saved by. But they had won. The galaxy was safe, and they had proven that when different species worked together, they could achieve the impossible. 6 months had passed since the Battle of Omega 9. Commander Sung stood on a hilltop on 7 where everything had begun. A memorial now stood here, made of stone from every world that had contributed forces to the battle. Names were carved into the stone, human names, and others. Names of warriors who had fought together and fallen together. The memorial ceremony was attended by representatives from across the galaxy. Sung watched as families from different species came to pay their respects. An elder touched the name of her son who had died beside human soldiers. A human mother laid flowers at the base, her son's name carved next to a warrior he had saved. It is beautiful in a sad way, Dr. Ah said softly beside him. She wore formal dress uniform, her medals gleaming in the sunlight. Among them was an honor badge and a peace star. They earned more than this memorial, Sung replied. They changed everything. And they had. The galaxy was different now. The Galactic Council had formally recognized humanity as a full member species. Earth had been invited to establish embassies on dozens of worlds. Trade agreements were being negotiated. But most importantly, attitudes had changed. War Chief R approached, his ceremonial armor polished to a mirror shine. Beside him walked several young warriors who looked at the human commander with obvious respect. "Brother Sung," R said, using the formal greeting, "the ceremony begins soon. You should speak first." Sung nodded. He had prepared a speech, but looking at all these families, all these warriors from different worlds, the words seemed inadequate. How could he capture what had happened? How could he explain what had been won and lost? When it was time, he stood before the assembled crowd. Thousands of beings from dozens of species had gathered. The silence was complete as he began to speak. "6 months ago, we were strangers," Sung said. "Different species who barely knew each other's names. We had different cultures, different languages, different ways of thinking. But we had one thing in common. We were willing to fight for what was right." He paused, looking at the memorial stone. "The warriors we honor today did something remarkable. They didn't fight because they were ordered to. They fought because they believed in protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. They bled together. They died together. And in doing so, they proved that honor and courage exist beyond any single species." R stepped forward next. His deep voice carried across the gathering. "They have always valued strength. We believed we were the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Then we fought beside humans. We learned that true strength isn't just physical power. It's the strength to stand with your brothers when the odds are impossible. It's the strength to keep fighting when everything tells you to run." He placed a massive clawed hand on Sung's shoulder. "This human and his warriors taught us that lesson. On this spot, they saved lives when they had no reason to. They earned Hal the blood debt, but they earned something more precious: respect." Ambassador spoke next. The feathers were decorated with memorial bands. "I admit I doubted humans at first. I thought them too young, too inexperienced. A brave young soldier named Dong proved me wrong by saving my life. The humans proved all of us wrong by showing us what we could accomplish when we worked together instead of apart." The ceremony continued with speeches from various leaders. But it was the personal stories that moved people most. Sergeant Wu stood with a warrior named OK, speaking about how they had learned to fight as a team. Corporal Sun shared how she and a medic had developed new life-saving techniques by combining their medical knowledge. Private Dong, now promoted to corporal, stood with the soldier who had fought beside him. They had become close friends despite being from different worlds. "We learned each other's languages," Dong explained, "shared our cultures, realized we're not that different after all." After the ceremony, there was a gathering. Food from multiple worlds was shared. Music played, strange combinations of human instruments and alien sounds that somehow worked together. Warriors who had fought at Omega 9 reunited, embracing each other regardless of species. Jinho demonstrated his latest invention to a group of fascinated engineers. He had created a universal power adapter that allowed any species' technology to work with any other. It seemed simple, but it would revolutionize galactic cooperation. "How did you think of this?" one engineer asked. Jinho shrugged. "I saw that we all have the same basic problems, we just solve them differently. I thought, why not let those different solutions work together?" Lieutenant Noah was surrounded by pilots from various species. They were swapping stories about impossible maneuvers and close calls. A pilot performed a musical composition about a particular battle, and Na found herself laughing and crying at the same time. "You flew with grace that day," they told her, "like wind through branches." "You flew with courage," Na replied, "like thunder in storms." They embraced, warrior to warrior, friend to friend. Sergeant Mi Young had become something of a celebrity. Her work decrypting communications had been published as an academic paper. Universities across multiple worlds wanted her to lecture, but she had chosen to stay with military communications, developing better ways for different species to coordinate in battle. Someone has to make sure we can understand each other when it matters, she explained to Sung. Dr. Ah's medical protocols had been adopted galaxy-wide. She had written a comprehensive guide to treating injuries across species. Medical schools were teaching her methods. Thousands of lives would be saved because of her work. I just did what needed doing, she said when presented with the Galactic Medical Achievement Award. Any doctor would have done the same. But R shook his massive head. No, most would have treated only their own kind. You saw all warriors as worthy of care. That is what makes you great. Several weeks after the memorial, Sung received an invitation that surprised him. The Galactic Council was establishing a new military academy where soldiers from different species would train together. They wanted him to help run it. You and R will co-command the academy, the council representative explained. You will train the next generation of warriors to fight together as you did. Sung accepted. It felt right. The battle had been won, but the work of building lasting peace had just begun. The academy opened a year after the memorial. The first class included cadets from 15 different species. Human students trained beside and others. They learned each other's fighting styles, shared their tactical knowledge, and most importantly, learned to trust each other. Sergeant was one of the instructors. His shoulder still ached where the plasma burn had, but he wore the mark with pride. He taught close-quarters combat, demonstrating techniques to students who towered over him or who could barely reach his waist. Size doesn't matter, he told them. What matters is using your strengths and understanding your partner's strengths. And a human fighting together are more dangerous than either fighting alone. The students watched as he sparred with an instructor. They moved together perfectly, compensating for each other's weaknesses and amplifying each other's strengths. It was beautiful to watch. In the medical wing, Dr. Ah taught cross-species emergency medicine. Her classroom was filled with students from multiple worlds, all learning how to save each other's lives. You must know biology, she explained, but you must also know compassion. A wounded warrior doesn't care what species you are. They just want to know someone cares if they live or die. A young student raised her wing. Dr. Ah, what if I freeze? What if I'm too scared to help? Ah smiled gently. Fear is natural. I was terrified during the Battle of Omega-9, but I kept working because I knew those warriors needed me. You find courage not by being unafraid, but by acting despite your fear. The academy thrived. Graduates went on to serve in mixed-species units across the galaxy. They brought with them the lessons learned at Omega-9, that cooperation was stronger than competition, that honor transcended species, and that fighting beside each other earned respect in a way that words never could. Sung stood in his office one evening looking at photos on the wall. His original team was there. Some had stayed with the military, others had moved on to different roles. But they all kept in touch. The bonds formed in battle didn't break easily. There was a knock on his door. R entered, ducking through the doorway as always. Tomorrow's graduation ceremony, they said. The first class completing the full program. They're ready, Sung replied. They've learned well. They learned from the best, R rumbled. He moved to stand beside Sung, looking at the same photos. Do you ever regret it? That day on 7 when you chose to help us? Sung thought about the question. They had lost good people. The fighting had been brutal. But they had also gained something precious, proof that different species could stand together. No regrets, he said finally. We did what was right, and look what came from it. R made a sound that might have been laughter. On that day, I thought humans were foolish, weak, soft skins who wouldn't last a month in space. And now Now I know humans are the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy, not because you're strong or fierce, but because you make others want to fight beside you. You turn strangers into brothers. That is a power no weapon can match. The graduation ceremony the next day was spectacular. Cadets from 15 species stood at attention in their dress uniforms. Families from across the galaxy filled the stands. When each cadet received their graduation badge, they were called by name in their native language and in Galactic Common. The final cadet to graduate was a human woman named Private One. She had scored highest in combined tactics, showing an ability to coordinate soldiers from multiple species. As she received her badge, she saluted Sung and R together. "Sir, I joined because of the stories," she said. "About humans and fighting together on Seven, about warriors from different worlds becoming brothers and sisters. I wanted to be part of that." "You already are," Sung told her. "Every cadet here is part of it. You're carrying it forward." As the ceremony ended and cadets threw their caps into the air, Sung felt a deep sense of peace. The war with the wasn't completely over. There would be other threats, other challenges. But the galaxy had learned an important lesson. Different species didn't have to be enemies. They could be allies, friends, family. It had started with a simple choice on Seven: help warriors in trouble or walk away. That choice had changed everything. It had earned humanity honor and respect across the stars. But more than that, it had proven that when beings fought beside each other, really fought together with trust and courage, they became something greater than they could ever be alone. Standing on the academy grounds, watching the next generation of warriors celebrate together, Sung knew the future would be different. Not perfect, there would still be conflicts and misunderstandings, but there would also be cooperation, unity, hope. The memorial on Seven honored those who had fallen, but the Academy honored their legacy by creating something lasting, a galaxy where species stood together instead of apart. Private Dong, now an instructor himself, approached with a group of cadets. They wanted to hear the stories firsthand from someone who had been there. "Tell us about the Battle of Ridge," one cadet asked eagerly. Dong smiled, looking at Sung for permission. The commander nodded. "It started on a dusty planet," Dong began. "We were just there to mine. We weren't looking for a fight, but sometimes you don't choose your battles, they choose you." As he told the story, the cadets listened with rapt attention. Human and others all hanging on every word, because it wasn't just a story about a battle. It was a story about how strangers became brothers, how honor was earned through action, how respect grew from fighting beside each other. And that story, Sung thought, was worth telling, again and again, to every new generation, so they would remember that the galaxy's strength came not from any single species, but from all of them working together. The sun set over the academy, casting long shadows across the training grounds. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight, warriors from across the stars stood together, united by the bonds that had been forged in battle and strengthened through mutual respect. They had earned their place among the stars, not through conquest or domination, but through courage, honor, and the willingness to fight beside those who needed them. That was the human way, and the galaxy was better for it.